Welcome, fellow seekers in wonderment, to Two Scoops of Woo. Today we are talking about runes. I'm so excited for this episode, as is the full cast. We have got a great seat today with Darlene. We've got Colleen, and Erin is joining us as well for her first time on the Two Scoops episode. And our guest today is Morgen Drake, and he is a rune expert. He's been studying them for a long time. He's also a wizard, and he makes some really neat stuff that we're going to talk about. Our main focus today is to learn a little bit about runes, which he is super passionate about. Morgen, we are so excited to have you and learn from you today. And I know you're super passionate, so welcome and thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to dive into some questions here. Because we are fellow seekers in wonderment, we are asking metaphysical questions out loud. It is our job here at Two Scoops of Woo. And traditionally, Darlene gets us going. So, Darlene, would you get us rolling today?
I sure will. Thank you, Morgan, for joining us today. This is so exciting. Everything that you have to share is like totally new to me. It was only a couple of months ago when I attended a holistic market, and that was the first time I ever heard of runes. And I don't even remember what she told me about them. Just that I think that she said that it's sort of a reading tool. And I'm interested in Akashic readings and mediumship and those type of things, but I know nothing about what you have. So could you kind of open up and maybe tell us in a basic way, what runes are as you get into your presentation?
Yeah, so I think the first important thing to know is they're actually like an ancient alphabet. Far enough back, they might be more of a writing system. They were used for magic. They were used for divination, as well as actually it branches beyond divination. We commonly see them used in bind runes, which I can get into. So they're not limited to divination, but that's a very common use of them today. So I like to kind of break through that barrier and teach a little beyond that as well.
Wow. Could you expand a little bit on the divination?
Sure. So, I mean, if you're doing it with divination, usually you have, I actually have a set here. They usually have a pouch, and there's 24 of them in the Elder Futhark. And some people just shake it up, ask their question, and draw one rune. It can be three runes. Some people have come up with whole systems with layouts, kind of like tarot. And each of the runes does have a meaning linked to it. They're actually sigils that link to universal powers. And so there's a lot of depth in each rune. So having that link and that understanding and that connection, it's not as detailed as tarot. It's more broad. And each rune also tends to have a wisdom attached to it, I've noticed, that can help with whatever issue. So that's kind of it, basically. That's the very basics that anyone starts with when they start with runes. And then you can like branch out from there.
Wow. That's fascinating.
I agree, Darlene. If there's an alphabet and it's got an energy and there's a history, I'm gonna sense controversy, okay? Because that has to be in there somewhere. So the history of the runes and the storytelling aspect is clearly there because that's how it works, right? It was passed down in different ways to different groups and that. So maybe sharing a little bit of the history, Morgan, because I know you kind of specialize in that and you're really passionate in that particular area. So give us a little background on the runes so that we can understand it better.
Sure. So to start, the system I usually stick with is the Elder Futhark. It's the oldest of the rune alphabets that we know of. And we actually know almost nothing. And it ends up developing from there as cultures and languages developed over the years. Different cultures and languages took away some runes, and we got the younger Futhark, and we got different versions of that, and then branched out from there. So there is more than one type of Futhark. But historically, we see them used a few ways. There was a runic calendar that was used to predict the seasons and the weather. That is the clearest form of divination that we have of their use in the past. Um, then we also see examples of things called bind runes, where more than one rune, usually two, are combined into one symbol. And I should clarify, I'm in this case, in the case of bind runes, the examples that I've seen are Elder Futhark, and they tend to use two. In time, they did start adding more runes to the bind rune systems. We know very little bit about how they are put together. We have a few clues, and we see evidence in the sagas of the use of runes being carved into a tree. And it's described that the seeress, the woman, carved the runes into like a log, and she activated them with blood. Quick disclaimer, I'm not saying you have to do that or that you should do that. There's alternatives. As long as it's the color red, it's fine. And this is why historically, whenever we see rune stones where, there was a story, the runes were usually painted red. The story aspect is linked to the fact that runes are, in fact, an alphabet, and each rune has a name. In our Latin Roman alphabet, we just say A, B, C. It's kind of hints at the sound. In the case of the Futhark, you have Fehu, which means cattle, Urus, which means aurochs, and each one translates into a different word. And those words, like in the case of cattle or horse, is my favorite example. The relationship that people had back then with a horse is different from ours today, and it's in their stories. It actually is a very important motif in the mythologies of not only Europe, but like not just Northern Europe, but throughout Europe. So the study of the old mythology and picking up on what was cattle to our ancestors, what did the horse mean, what did the yew tree mean, things like that. That helps to give you the worldview of the people back then and really get into what the meanings are. Like if you just say Fehu cattle, well, what's that? Well, it represents prosperity. Back then, to have a cow, you had food, you had a way to make fire if you know how to make a ghee lamp. I know that's India, but you had fuel, you could make clothing with the leather. They were incredibly useful survival animals, and the more cows you had, the more prosperous you were. So digging deep, deep into the history, studying the mythology of the region is very important to understand what it was like for them at that time and place, and for those motifs to actually mean something deeply, not just, oh, it's a cow. What does that mean?
So very situational and to the period and to the culture, and gives them a way to pass along these stories, and that, I mean, that's how everything that's really stuck around has kind of happened. So thanks for
Yes.
the history there and an understanding of the depth of what we're actually looking at. It does leave a little room for interpretation for ourselves, which I think is really important. So I
Yes.
really appreciate the information there.
I had a question that about the background, and you said you used the elder Futhark,
Yes.
but then those are the older interpretations. I was wondering how the interpretations of the runes has evolved over time, since we're clearly not in, older
Right.
times now.
Right. So typically people that study the runes, they really delve into the runic poems. As far as I have found, I don't think there's a single runic poem linked to the Elder Futhark specifically. But with the evolutions of language and culture, Elder Futhark became Younger Futhark, and we start to get rune poems describing them. And it's really important to delve into this. This is over several hundred years. And as you look at the rune poems, you do see a little bit of an evolution of what the idea was, to the point where if you looked at all the rune poems you can find, one rune could have like 4 different poems, while another rune, the meaning seems to have never changed. So it is interesting to see that and see how it evolves. And it's kind of fun to dive into that. It's like, why? Sometimes you get an answer, sometimes you don't. But for modern day, I mean, I really think that that's something that needs to be discovered by the person themselves. Um, to be honest, when you study runes, you will never stop learning to the day you die. You can never be perfect at learning runes. There is a depth I can't express unless you dive in. You gotta jump in to learn to swim. Got to get in the water. And when you jump in, you start realizing the depth, and it can scare some people, but don't let it scare you. So some of those interpretations of the past may have to change because, for example, you know, we don't have relationships with horses anymore. So what does the meaning of the horse rune that you've discovered, how does that apply to you in the modern day? Because our modern day is very far. The culture and the technology we have actually does separate us tremendously. So I do expect that as we dive in, we realize, oh, okay, that's what it was like for them. That links more to this aspect of my life now.
Um, that is amazing. I just had one follow-up was, is there an easy way for somebody to get started, or is there like a way that for pure beginners just to dive in so they're not scared?
Oh, that's a good question. Rune poems are fun. You can find some online. I the translations are good enough to start. With the lettering, the actual lettering. So historically with Elder Futhark, literally all we know of Elder Futhark is possibly the names. We know the shapes of the runes. We possibly know the names. We do know what they translate into, except for one. And so knowing the words is the first step. Knowing Fehu means cattle, and Ewas means horse, and Otala means estate. That's a good starting point, finding the translation, and then just dive from there. Because for example, there was one rune that even with the rune poems, I was like, I don't get this rune. And I was talking to my partner about it, and they're like, well, it translates into elk sedge. What's an elk sedge? What's its role in the environment? Did the ancestors use it for any reason? Turns out it's elk sedge feeds cattle, feeds the like the herding animals like the deer and the caribou. It's a very important food source for these animals that were seen as a food source for our ancestors at the time. So I know there's a link there, and that's where I'll stop. So, you know, you gotta, when you start with that, just start asking questions. Just don't worry too much about understanding it immediately. When you learn the name of a rune, start writing down questions and then just start with your own questions. That's the first and best way, I think, to start. Because if you start with academia, that should be down the line and it's important. But if you start with academia, it's so heavy and there's so much and there can be a lot of confusion that if you just start with playing first, like a kid, just play with them. Ask your questions. Maybe look at what it kind of feels like to you and kind of test that out. But I think play is probably the best start. Play and your own curiosity.
That's perfect because I would have 100% dove into like try to research and
yeah, and that is important. I will say you do definitely want to do that. Mythologists, if you can listen to some mythologists, some of the common motifs in mythology are good to look into. Of course, looking into the sagas and the Eddas and the rune poems, that's getting deep into the academia aspect. Those are the two big ones I would say that you should probably start with when you start jumping into the academic aspect of it. And a good understanding of animism. If you don't have it, it's very useful.
So, thank you for that. I have question. So you start with the runes, and I'm a little familiar. There's different types of tools that you use, also, right? You have dice, and different like wands. I think I heard something about wands. So do they all tie together, or are they used for different parts
Yeah,
of that?
I'm a wizard, so I make all kinds of tools. The classic set is a set like this where I'll pull some of them out. There's a rune. Whoop, that's the blank one. There's a rune on each one. And then Jason, of course, has the rune dice. That is something I picked up. I cannot take credit for the idea, but I thought it was brilliant because I think the idea of having a smaller set to just carry around with you is fun. Um, to be really honest, and I know this isn't supporting my business at all, but if you know the runes, if you know their shape, if you know their name, if you know what they mean, and you don't have any runes on you, you still have their power. You can write them anywhere. You can make your own bind runes. So having a set though is good to start. With a set like this, if you have a rune and you want to think, well, what does this mean? I'm kind of stuck on this concept. I've asked my questions. I've dove into the mythology and I feel like there's something I'm missing. The nice thing about single runes like this is you can hold them and meditate. And it's just that one rune. These are fun because I like to encourage play. I think play is one of the best ways to learn anything. Play in your own curiosity. And, everyone's got a little gerblin brain that likes the little clicky clacks. And so that gets you holding them and curious and rolling and being like, oh, wow, like this is so fun. Like, what am I going to roll now? And it activates that play part of your brain. And I can't iterate enough how important that is for learning anything.
So when you're picking out and you're using these tools, does it matter what material you're using does it bring different things through, or is it just personal preference?
That is something to explore. Some people might have preference. The world tree in Norse mythology, Yggdrasil. There's two schools of thought. It could be an ash tree. It's most likely a yew tree because the kenning for yew tree is needle ash. And so people got confused is the argument. And so some people prefer them to be either made of ash or yew. Honestly, the important thing with runes is to have them activated. They should be energized. In the past, they used red. They would paint them red. I make the argument, and you don't have to agree with me, that if they're burned in, the fire energy is energy, and it is a red energy that goes in. So either painting them red or burning them into wood, stone, bone, regardless. But I really would leave that open to the person and their relationship and what's important to them, because the runes themselves aren't linked to one particular substance. They're very non-physical things because they're an alphabet they're more like sigils. And so the sigil is what's important. After that, if like deer are important to you and you want a set made out of deer bone, then great. That's your way of connecting. It links them with who you are personally. So I wouldn't get too wrapped up in materials. I may emphasize, you might want them to be either red or burned, but that's about my only rule. And even then, I'm a little wobbly on it sometimes. You've got a good argument for something else, go for it.
That's perfect description of what grabbed me with the runes. I've always had interest in them. As a potter myself, I want to make them. I make them for myself, because of the energy and the things you're talking about, how it can carry them. And then when I saw these, I gasped. It was in this cool little pouch that fits in everything. Here's all 24 runes on a set of dice. Now, Morgan, you made it really clear to me that there were a couple of neat things going on here. One, there's the Oh, here we go. Jason's throwing in controversy again. There's the blank rune, which we don't necessarily have to get into, but the 24 you talked about fits perfect on these dice.
Yep.
And one of the things that I really like that you shared with me right away, you were saying, hey, you can roll it this way, you can pull it out with three, two or three or one, and use that for the guidance or for whatever purpose. But also that I could roll them, get two or three, and then put them back in my hand and still have access to all of them.
Yep.
So I have the full, even though I've gotten maybe my first two runes, it could come up again because that could be significant. And the dice really allow for that level of
Yep.
play and
Yeah.
interactivity and flexibility. So help, tell, man, these things are so cool, right? Because
I'm glad
he
you love it.
really, well, you really did burn them in, you know, and
Mhm.
I could feel it. They have texture in that, and I know they're available in your shop, and we'll tell people about that in a second. That this really is you walking your talk and getting it out there in a way that people can interact with it. So
Mhm.
tell me why you, man, I just have so many questions about the tools that you make. With other than your runes, let's say, and the stuff that you make, what's your favorite thing to create a tool to make for yourself or for others?
My favorite thing is to do something custom for someone. Doesn't matter what it is. If someone comes up and is like, I really need blank, I really want it made this way, and as long as it's in my capability, my favorite thing is just to do custom stuff. I can do wands, pendulums, runes. I do grids. I don't have one that is family appropriate to show right now, but it's on a metal ring and it's in place. It's all strapped down. And so I make those in large, small. I mean, if someone wants a tool and they contact me, if I can make it, then I will make it for you. But my main thing is I'm a good wire wrapper. I do some burning. Um, I've I've got a pretty wide range of arts that I can do, but no, custom pieces are absolutely my favorite. I don't care what it is. If it's a custom piece, I'm excited to make it. It allows me to play a little bit and break out of myself a little bit. And just seeing the look on people's faces when they see it finished and it's just for them, that's my absolute favorite.
That's so fun. You said pendulum. I'm like, I could totally go for a custom pendulum.
With the pendulums, I'm trying to find the best distributor with some good varieties on crystals. I might have found one, but I will bend over backwards to find the crystals you want. You just
We will
gotta wait
talk.
for me. You just gotta wait a couple weeks for it to come in the mail, and then I'll get right to it, and it'll be done. But I will bend over backwards to find the materials.
As a
Now,
resourceful wizard. Go
Yeah, yeah. No,
ahead,
I'm a
Darlene.
wizard.
Morgan, do people come to you for readings, or is this something that you encourage people to do on their own? And if they do come to you for readings, what are they looking to get out of it?
I have done readings in the past. I ended up stopping because, to be very honest, I got stuck, I think, twice because the reading that I saw, I was like, I don't know. I don't have the heart to tell the person what I'm seeing. My bravery on trying to give people bad news is terrible. So I've kind of put that down for now because I got some stuff to work on there. But when people come, usually they just want a general reading, which is also part of why I get stuck when they're like, oh, I want a general reading. I'm like, your car's gonna break down. Like, I'm seeing your car's gonna break. I don't even know how to what and then I'm bad. I'm bad. That's why I don't do it. But I do encourage people. That is a great way to play and try to figure out what the runes are for you. Do a one rune reading for yourself every day, especially once you know what a rune translates into and a general feeling. Do a one rune reading. Just be like, hey, uh, you know, is there something unique that's going to happen today? And if so, what's it aligned with? And then pull a rune and see if it matches anything in your life. I definitely recommend doing it for yourself far before doing it for anybody else because of the depth. Um, But yeah, I think I answered your questions.
Yeah. And to me, it almost sounds like a foreign language, and there's a lot to learn that goes along with it. Yeah.
It's you can do quite a bit with the little bit that you begin with, because like I said, it's play, and even after like 15 years of really diving and searching and learning, I still run into information that makes me go, wait, that's important for understanding whatever rune, you know. Um, and to be really clear, when it comes to divination, our modern divination is very modern. Like this and the dice, this is modern. This is not linked. We don't have the best evidence. Like there's one line in history that might support the use of runes in a similar way. That's not really good. But because this is so modern, like we're open to re-exploring not just within ourselves, but culturally our relationship with them and how we like to use them. So don't be scared. Don't feel like it's way too much. Just play. You're gonna get results very quickly, very quickly. Play with bind runes. You use them for manifesting. If you want to manifest prosperity, have Fehu. If you want joy in your prosperity, link it with Wunyo, which means joy, and see how that works for you. You know, it shouldn't be scary. With the very basics that you can learn, you can absolutely jump in and get started and find results.
Interesting. Thank you for explaining that. Yeah.
Yeah.
The 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 neat thing that I love that you keep saying, there's a couple of things you keep coming back to, the play, of course, and the cultural aspect and the personal energy and definition. And I see how just pulling one rune a day, starting simple like that, you're saying we could get results just by playing with the one. And then as we get comfortable, all right, pull two, see what happens. Even
Yep.
intentionally pull two out and put them together and implement those, right? I mean, the flexibility is there all over the place. That's what I'm
Mhm.
getting. Yes,
Oh
that's
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Because
I want to put you on the spot a little bit. Can I do that? Because I'd
yeah,
love to do like a collective, rather than like try to read one rune for each of us. I was thinking maybe just something for the show overall, right? Like maybe just the folks that are here and the folks that are listening, so it could give them a cool little message. Maybe can I do two runes and will you interpret them for us and share a little bit deeper about how that affects and what you do?
yeah. So what's the question you're gonna ask before you roll?
Oh, see, where now he's putting us. Who is anybody on the cast got a good question? We got a good intention. I put him on the spot and he did it back to me. So now I'm going to pass it to you guys.
Called a wizard.
That's what they do.
Where is two scoops of woo going?
Okay, let's do that. Let's do that. And I'm going to roll two. I'm going to roll one and show it to you, and then put it back in my hand and roll again just in case we get doubled up. So
Gotcha.
here's our first one.
Oh, hang on. Wait, show it to me again. There was a note.
Oh, sorry, did I lose you? There we go.
Okay, we have Anzus. All right.
Okay. And wait, oh, I need to roll just one. I love rolling all of them, so and then that's what we got.
Wunyo. Oh,
Okay.
oh
What's
my
this,
gosh.
what's our scoop then?
Okay. So your first one was Anzus. It can be translated as God, or it can be translated as mouth. Realize, of course, divinity, in a lot of mythology, the voice and sound across cultures, you have your mantras that link to the divine word that you see in Abrahamic religions. So there is a link of divinity and communication. And then you have Wunyo, which is joy. So, I mean, immediately what we see is joy in the communication of spirit, which is exactly what's already happening. So,
Well, that was easy.
it's nice that we see joy, and it wasn't something like Thurisas, which is linked to the Jotun, the giants, which are usually it can be a sign of animosity. You didn't pull that. You literally pulled the one rune that translates into joy. So
Perfect.
we can see you ask that question and it immediately links. It almost makes a sentence. Spiritual communication with joy. It's starting to tell the story.
Thank
So that was
you.
actually a great one. I love that. I love that.
Great intention there, Erin. Way to ask and put us right out there to see what's going on. We are asking metaphysical questions out loud, after all. Right? We don't mind. We don't mind going there. Morgan, thanks for the interpretation and the vote of confidence. Really, I mean, just that little bit. I mean, imagine what that would be like every morning, you guys, to just
Right.
pull one or two of those. And it also tells me that as long as we stay in joy, if we get out of joy in our communication, that we're getting off track. So it's telling us what's good and what to watch out for in a
Yes.
sense at the same time. So I
Yes.
love the possibility and the interpretation. You guys, I have this other cool thing that Morgan dropped on me that I have been making use of. These little fidget wands that are in the store. That's got a loop where I can spin it. It's got a little spinner on one side where I can spin it, and then it's got these cool little deals on the handle where guess what I can do with those?
Finish?
Yeah, spin them. So, but they're different textures and feelings. You know, it's not like clicking a pen. When I'm sitting here on Zoom, I'm clicking away. That's not the best habit for myself, and it's kind of distracting. But this really allows me to not feel like I'm as fidgety, if that makes sense. I took a fidget stick, and now I feel less fidgety. So, Morgan,
And it's
Morgan,
beautiful.
isn't it? Isn't it? And
Yeah,
then
it's gorgeous.
yeah, as are all the things in the shop. So, Morgan, tell us a little bit about your shop and what you've got going on there. I know we touched on it with the grids and such. Tell
Yeah.
them the name and what they can expect when they go there.
So my shop is Finbara's Realm. I've got a few things up. I like to do unique things, so you won't see much up because it takes a long time to make something and take the photos for every individual little thing. But I do have runes up. I do have rune dice. I have some things up. Ideally, if you want something, if you like my work, I would say just message me and say, hey, I want a mini one with particular stones. Do you have them? And I'll be very open and communicative with you as to whether or not I have those stones. If I don't, I'm willing to order them so long as my customer is willing to wait the up to 2 weeks for it to come in. And then we can move on from there. I've got 2 little stones here, a third one here. I've got these wings and I have different kinds of wire and I've got 2 different kinds of tubes. If anyone is always totally open to messaging me on Etsy for anything. And if there's something that you want made that's not on my website, something that I can't think of anything right now, but if you're interested in something in particular, message me. I'll be very honest as to whether or not I can make it. But yeah, custom stuff. And the fidgets, I have 4 of my styles on there, my fidget ones. So those should be there. And those are real quick and easy. I can get it done and send it off to you. Don't feel limited to those styles. If you like my fidgets and you're like, hey, I want specific stone, awesome. Tell me. I'll make it for you. Promise.
The passion for you really is in the connection of the item and that intention in creating it. That's true wizardry right there, you guys. I know enough about what the work is, and I've seen it. There'll be some pictures, but I really urge you guys to go to the link in the description and take a look for yourself at some of what is available there. The runes, the dice. Are also really reasonable, you guys. I was totally surprised. That and a fidget wand, and you're gonna have a desk full of goodies that will keep you going for a little while. I really did enjoy the crystal grids. You only, like you said, you only had a couple on there, and some the pictures were custom, but the testimonials were off the charts. right? The people, they get them, and I got goosebumps just remember reading them and how what the feedback was and how perfect the items were. And that's the kind of customization and authenticity that a wizard will take the time to do. And this is a trained wizard, you guys, okay? I know because we've had the conversations, and Morgan is local here to the Colorado Springs area where I am, and that's kind of how we met, is here in Colorado. Yet his training goes back from wizarding families, generations. Okay, generations I can identify and that he shared with me. So there really is a spectacular thing going on there. So if you're into those kind of tools and that sort of energy and commitment and intention, then the customization with Morgan really is the way to go.
May I throw something out there?
Of course.
Um, I am not limited to a spirituality. So I will throw out there, I am open to any and all spiritual paths, not just pagan. I have had people request me make rosaries out of gemstones, and I have full respect for all paths, full love for all paths. I will not judge you. If you want something very specific, I don't care what path you are. I will make it. Like, don't think that I won't because he's a pagan. He doesn't want to make a rosary for someone or whatever. So I just want to throw out there that I won't turn down a spiritual tool. If you ask me to make it, I will make it. I was actually raised Catholic. So I've made those for people, and I know for some people that might seem offensive, but it's me. I'm a wizard. I care about people's spirituality, period. I don't care what spirituality that is.
Well, I just love the passion, man, and I love where you come from. I love your articulation. We're just blessed to have you share with the runes, and then kind of delve us into a little deeper areas where now I got some questions about these wands and things, especially those grids. We
Yeah.
could do a whole thing on the grids, right? That's that that's its whole episode all by itself. So maybe we'll get a return and have you come join us again.
Oh, I'd
The
be happy to.
Yeah, well, as I shared, you guys, you're going to be able to get the link in the comments. And if you are interested in connecting with any of us from the Two Scoops of Woo cast here as well, whether it's Darlene or Erin or Colleen, you can check out the Two Scoops of Woo website where you can sign up for our email list. You can stay abridged on, you can actually get on our delivery route, really. If you need 2 scoops in your mailbox, we can get that hooked up for you. Also, if you're looking for the profiles, you want to connect with somebody directly, you'll be able to do that through the Two Scoops website. One last time, Morgan, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate your presence and your expertise and giving us a little 2 scoops reading today. Such a
Of
treat.
course. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you everyone for watching, listening, and participating with us. We are a community of fellow seekers in wonderment that are asking metaphysical questions out loud. We will see you in the next episode.
Thanks, Morgan.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you
welcome.
so
Thanks
much.
for having me.
Thank you, Morgan.